What does Christmas music from Mariah Carey, men's bathroom etiquette, public education, and fatherhood all have in common? Stumped? Good, 'cause so am I. These are the topics that Bubba and his guest will be tackling on the finale of this 3-part episode with Dan Cooper. Where else will you hear a wildly popular, top-notch, hard-hitting podcast take on such a wide range of issues? Nowhere. It can't be done. Except right here on the What Is Up podcast. Here's your host, Bubba Seaman.
All right, so now we're going to get to the main topic, the reason I started this podcast, the What Is Up segment, where we take some issue or multiple issues or something that needs to be discussed, and everyone has, feelings about or whatever, and we prove to the entire world, our audience, that this is stuff we need to talk about, and it's okay if we disagree or whatever. It's perfectly fine to just talk about something, what is up with, because I was looking around, and all these different things were happening and going on, and I'm just like, what is up with this? Why are we doing this? Or why is that happening? And so that is kind of where I got the idea to do this. So we're going to ease into it because you got a couple things we'll have some fun with here. You have an unwarranted disgust for Mariah Carey and her global phenomenon hit, Christmas hit, All I Want for Christmas. Is that it? No.
Yeah.
Is that the name of it?
All I Want for Christmas is you.
Yeah. What is up with this disgust for this song?
Oh, well, what is up with the rest of America and the world?
Oh, they're the problem.
Okay?
They're the problem.
Oh,
okay.
My gosh. How? Yeah. And now it's really unfounded disgust, like that I just really hate Mariah Carey. I've never met her, and so I shouldn't say I hate Mariah Carey. I hate her music. And I hate that people are like, she's so good. Part of what is awful about this song is that she wrote a good song that's it's like a Christmas song, right? So she's like playing the market, and now it's like it's been immortalized, right? Every year it comes back, every year, and it's like, how can we put Mariah Carey on the same ground, the same footing as chestnuts roasting, like what's the classics? Irving Berlin or who's like Nat King Cole, I don't even care, like Frank Sinatra, all the crooners, like the
Burl Ives.
Yes, exactly. And Mariah Carey's on that list now, like Mariah.
Oh, most people put her above that.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That part of it is like the way that she conducts herself. She seems very like self-absorbed, very like I'm the very egotistical, and I am sure that some of the other singers were, but oh man, how this kind of I dare I say B-list pop star is now hey, every Christmas I get to come out and
in Christmas. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. She defrosts. That's what they say. She's defrosting as we get closer.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, but now you tried to combat that. You actually did something most people wouldn't do. You tried to just I'm going to support this. I'm going to open up to the possibility of playing that song at a concert. Being the band teacher, how'd that go?
Yeah, well, I thought it was maybe a way I could exercise this demon. That
right?
I could be like, all right, I want to be done with you, Mariah Carey. I don't know why I hate you so much. I don't like the hate that's in my heart. So yeah, I bought the arrangement. We played it at a Christmas concert, like a holiday concert. We've got the song going, and I just had to tell the audience, I was like, I'm really sorry about this next selection. Some of you are going to love it, and I don't know if we can be friends anymore, right? And after the performance, there were, when I confessed my unwarranted hatred of Mariah Carey music, and there were many others afterwards that were like, me too. I don't know why
they wouldn't applaud. They didn't applaud you after you said that, but they came up to you in private.
Yes, in private, and they were like, I just hate her.
Yeah.
There's still to this day people who are like, oh, I love that song. It's my favorite Christmas song. And I don't know if it's just like they grew up. I know, right? I would take the Chipmunks Christmas over. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like Alvin, Theodore, Simon, sing me, All I Want for Christmas is My Two Front Teeth, whatever, over Mariah Carey.
Yeah. Oh man.
One dad was like, I hate her too. But then he gifted me a CD of like the Mariah Carey Christmas. He was like, "Hey, I found this and I thought of you." I'm like, why would you do that?
He doesn't like you.
Why would you do that to me?
Nice. Oh yeah, man. You say Alvin and the Chipmunks Christmas. That just reminds me the whole cartoon conversation we were having. Like another thing kids don't realize is like waiting to see that Christmas special of Alvin and the Chipmunks, or waiting to see Charlie Brown Christmas or Charlie Brown the Great Pumpkin. Like if you weren't in front of that TV when it came on that year, you missed it. That was it. And it's like, oh man, maybe we need to go back to go forward. I don't know. We'll see. All right, so another good one is something I've always thought about, but I've never spoken about. It's one of those things. Everyone has these things. There's just things we don't talk about. But this is one of them, and you ladies aren't going to understand it because you've never been in a men's room. But you have this question about what is up with urinal etiquette.
Yeah, Bubba, this is a nationwide
I can't believe we're talking about this.
Urinal etiquette. Every man has probably gone to a man's public restroom and like been like, what is this sticky all over the floor?
Yeah.
Why? Okay. And it doesn't matter. Sometimes you get like the full length urinal, like kind of like
that goes to the floor.
Where it's like shoulder high all the way to the floor.
Yeah.
Still all over the place. Right. Now I cannot assume that there are people going in there and purposefully just like whizzing on the floor. Right. So most people I would think are more like me where they're like, how does this happen all over the floor? So I think like we need like a public service announcement, you know, like I just see like the posters that you put over every urinal and just have it be like one step closer. Right. So that like everybody be like, hey buddy, just take one step closer.
Get into it.
You're not going to drip on the floor if you just one step closer. Yeah. The other problem I think might be a man problem where maybe you're not as big as you might think. Right. And so like, you're like, guy, buddy, you're not, nope. You got to get closer. It's not overlapping yet. You got to get a little bit closer. Okay. I don't know how to solve it, but like the stick on a men's room floor, you position your legs so that you're not standing in it. And then you walk out and you just hear your feet are sticking on the floor.
Yeah.
It is awful.
Yeah,
it's awful.
Disgusting.
Like, gents, we just have to commit to this, okay? Or maybe you leave early. You know what I mean? Maybe you're like, oh, almost done, and you like
not quite.
Yep, zip up a little bit, and then just leave a little few drips on the floor, and over time that builds up. It's awful. I can't. It makes me think of like my boys would be like, hey, like bathroom opposite the or like showers opposite the toilet, when they're like, hey, Dad, I can make it from here. And I only know then. I was like, okay, I mean, great, but that also means you've tried. And like, so maybe there's people who are like, I bet I can make it from here, and they don't understand. They're also leaving a trail along the way. Yeah. But it's awful. It's awful. And then we've all experienced this too, though. Okay,
this is the one I was talking about that we don't talk about right here.
This is, yeah. Okay, guys, we have like a few ways of approaching a urinal. Okay, and I feel like there's some that are acceptable. Like we could say like either kind of through the gate, like I'm using the fly, or over the fence where you just like kind of pull down and over top. But there are some people out there that just go full, they just drop trowel all the way, pants to the floor. And nothing can prepare you for the moment that you go into a men's room and you just walk and see just full moon, just right out there at the urinal.
It's disturbing.
It's not something I think we should ever do. And I don't know how this happens. I feel like there's a small percentage of men in the world that is their natural way. Maybe they were raised without fathers, and or it could just be, there could be another reason, maybe their belt is broken and the pants just fell and you just happen to see upon that moment. But
yeah, you got two hands.
Yeah, nothing can prepare you for that, but we need to put an end to it. I don't know if it's like we need to talk to the pants designers, like jeans or something, suspenders. Maybe that would present, if we could all go back to wearing suspenders, that would keep the pants from falling all the way down to the ground.
Well, yeah, if you had suspenders, you could unbutton, unzip, and they're still there.
Right.
You're good.
Both hands are free.
Or on the inside of like when you unzip, some like my work uniforms, they have like a little label on the left side of the inside of the zipper. Just put like a little instruction thing right there. Like, do not drop all the way to the floor when using a urinal.
Or go
in the stall. If you got to drop, Go in the stall.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. Yep.
But like you said, when we were talking in prep for the show, how do you get, like, I get it walking into the elementary bathroom. I get it. That's probably where I saw it most. But at some point, as you work your way through, you understand, hey, the guy next to me ain't doing that. I don't got to be showing my butt. Yeah, don't do that.
Hey.
But you know what I see now? It's weird. I see it. I would be willing to say half the time I go into the bathroom at work to the urinal, guys will, as soon as they start peeing, they will spit in the urinal for like it's a nervous tick
Could
or
be
a
like
habit.
a ritual.
It's a ritual.
Like
Why
one
are
for
you
the homies.
spitting in the yeah, exactly. And I don't know what that is. And it's not, they know not to spit tobacco. I mean, at Lifeline, we're a tobacco-free facility. They know not to throw that stuff in the urinal, but what's up with just the one spit? It's weird. And I'm not going to ask them because we're peeing at the time.
Right. Man, the other thing about this, like, what kind of a animal do they think we are when they just put a big old trough down and be like, hey, why don't you guys just line her up? Just, like this.
Yeah.
How disgraceful. Like,
that is weird.
Women have, like, everybody's got a private stall.
Yeah.
Like,
Menards has it. Menards has it. If anyone they don't have the troughs. Whoever has the troughs, you need to take a note from Menards. Put the hardware store ad at eye level in front of the trough. And then we're fine. We're fine.
Nobody's looking down.
Yeah. No one has. You don't have to wait in line for the corner spot that's next to the stall so you can angle in. Everyone will just belly up, pee, and they're looking, at what power tool they can get or whatever, and we're good. But yeah, the trough is definitely hard to do.
Yeah. So in general, fellas, like, we can go one step closer. Okay. And then, man, keep those pants up.
Pants up, eyes up, one step closer. I mean,
the sticky floor, we can end it.
Yeah. Okay. So there I know we just solved two of the world's problems, right?
Bubba, here's what's terrible is that there's half of the world's population that'll be like, how can that be a problem? Urine on the floor. And every man is like,
it's not fake news.
Yeah, that's real.
There. It's there. Man. Okay, now we're going to go into the serious one. You are in the public school system. We have plenty of different things we can talk about. There's things you've observed that you want to talk about, maybe enlighten some of us who aren't in the public school system but have kids in the public school system. And we understand every school is different, and there could be differences between rural schools and inner city schools and schools out on the East Coast compared to the Midwest and things like that. But what's some of the stuff that you want to talk about that you've observed in public school?
It's kind of odd. It seems like there's been maybe attack on the public school, like in general, over the last few years. Nationwide, you have a lot of kind of like the woke ideology. Yeah. And, I see a lot on some of the media that I follow, like, did you mention Blaze TV? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that PragerU, seems to have a lot of stuff where it's like the kind of like blue-haired activist teacher that's like, I put my pride flag on display. And well, I'm not discounting that at all.
Right.
I feel like there is this just vague generalization to say that, like, yes, that must be
lumping
the norm.
It all together.
Yep, like that's what teachers do. When man, it's really not the case. Like you have the same, you have Christians can be teachers, right? Yep. I mean, like, and there are people all over just doing the best they can for kids. There are, I'm sure, some teachers that are using their platform to try to preach at kids a certain lifestyle. Yeah. But like by and large, they're not the enemies. Like, teachers care a lot for their kids. I would say a majority of teachers do. Yeah. But there's an odd way, there's like, I would not say there's like any kind of systemic like plan or plot, to indoctrinate our children into believe like non-Christian values. Okay. But there's odd things that, like, I've just noticed in in testing and in some of the curriculum. Mm-hmm. It's not like, I mean, you don't have like, a math problem that's like, pride, but like there's story problems, or there's like written examples that will address like so-and-so's life partner is, where like they're just trying to work in like same-sex marriage and normalizing a little bit of like the vocabulary where you're like, well, that's not really necessary. Like it doesn't matter really what, we used to have like Jill and Jim or like Susie and Tom, like generic name of like, if you just name, you could say like a boy, what did this? A girl did this. And there's like just odd ways where you're like, why? That's not necessary that you make it be a same-sex couple, like doing this. I mean,
no, I agree.
Like I say, there's nothing wrong with using it, but also it's like, it's not really the platform. You're trying to teach math. Like why are you going to go there? Exactly. Or, and then the other thing that you see is the assumption, like in science textbooks, like they are so ready to just be like, if you believe in God, that's a fairy tale and you can't really be smart if you do, like it's okay. But once you get smarter, you'll realize that like the Bible's not real or that creation it's not possible.
It's not intelligent design.
Right. Yeah. When like they refuse to like admit that evolution has flaws and like, I mean, even like there's a guy, Ken Hovind, who like ran the Creation Museum and, he like talks about all the time. He's like, in the beginning, the atheist or the denier of creation might say, in the beginning, there was nothing and nothing turned into something. Well, at least the Christians can say in the beginning, God made something.
Yes.
And so like there's no allowance really for, that discussion even. And it's presented as pure fact when there are many scientists that have like said, hey, there are major issues with the theory of evolution. It is a theory.
That's why evolution. It's a theory.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But we don't address that. We just teach it like it's fact.
Right.
And it's not the science teachers by any means. And I'm sure some of them do address that.
Right.
But like it's the textbooks by and large that are just like, this is the way it is. It's 100 trillion million billion years that the Earth's been around. Like you don't know that. No one knows that.
Right.
No one knows that.
Yeah. Yeah, my daughter did a project on that in high school once, and she wasn't trying to advocate for any particular side, but she got to the conclusion that said, if you only teach one side, aren't you influencing a certain narrative or whatever? Like, aren't the majority of kids going to then just accept that as truth or fact because they're not given another option? They're not taught to think critically, and it was a very good, well-received presentation, and that's the main thing. Like I don't care if people have doubts or gripes or anything. I've always said if you're going to search for truth, you know what I mean? That's where you start. You don't just accept something
right just because they said
doubt all of the Bible. Please do. And then investigate the Bible in context. Exactly. There's plenty of guys like Lee Strobel and J. Warner Wallace. They were hardcore atheists, and they come to that same conclusion that to them, they don't have enough faith to be an atheist. Because to be an atheist, no knock on my atheist friends at all, but to be an atheist, you have to get to that point where you say you believe nothing created everything.
Right. It's not the absence of a belief. Atheism is not like there is no God. You're still believing in something. There's still a leap of faith that has to happen.
That's right.
As the atheist.
You have a worldview as an atheist.
Exactly. There's still a belief system there. It's just not based on God.
Right.
So you fall back on nothing. Right. Exactly.
And I can remember hearing in science class, I can remember hearing about intelligent design. They didn't say God, they didn't say anything like that, but I can remember it being taught side by side at some point. I don't know what grade it was, but I remember hearing theory of evolution, intelligent design. That's all we're asking for.
Yeah.
Don't pigeonhole it to one specific thing. Teach kids how to think. You know what I mean? That's my big thing for sure. That's always a good thing. Okay. And then another topic would be the school choice or voucher. What's the pros and cons on that? Where are you kind of at? And this is all just so everyone knows. Whenever we get into the What Is Up segment, this is my personal opinion, the guest's personal opinion. This doesn't reflect on who we work for or even our spouses or anything. This is the ground where hey, you talk about how you feel and what you see, and that's that.
Yeah. So I don't really know all there is about the like kind of school voucher or school choice or whatever.
Okay.
However this is, I know that like a law was signed.
It was passed in Iowa. Yeah.
Yep. And I know, like, as I have just kind of like thought out the implications of it, of like, well, what is this? What will this look like? And at first you're like, hey, it's probably going to result in like kids like fleeing the like
yeah,
the lesser districts or whatever, like lower scoring or test scoring, or I mean, I don't know however you want to say, like the worse schools, like will be like, oh, they'll lose all their kids, and then those schools will have to shape up. And,
right.
And I think like what I have seen in both kind of sides of this debate is that like the school voucher is a great thing for like parents that are involved in their children's education.
Okay.
And I think it could be a great thing for those parents that like can make educated decisions about like what if a different school district could serve your child better, or a private school, of what it could like academically meet their needs.
Yeah.
But the trouble then is, of course, then tax dollars are going to a private place, right? Which is like, okay, I mean, it's fine if it aligns with my beliefs. I don't mind that. But what if it's a school that like, hey, all these kids are going to the, like, I mean, just pick whatever ridiculous, the school of terrorist training, where you're like, whoa, I don't want my tax dollars to go to that. Yeah. Like, you're teaching them to be terrorists. Yeah. Or whatever the case. The other thing that's a little bit weird is that private institutions don't have to abide by the state laws. And so like they don't have to educate, they don't have to have a special ed program, right? They don't have to have they don't have to adhere to like testing, like the state level
standards.
Testings.
Okay.
But also, like the concern is that like in a perfect world, kids with involved parents they're gonna be successful pretty much in any school because their parents are involved in their education.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there are kids who don't have involved parents for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's the work schedule, maybe it's the education level, maybe it's just like the situation they're in, like a broken family where, they got maybe a single parent and the single parent's working 2 jobs. They don't have the ability to move districts or get them to another school. And so then I fear that it takes away resources from those like kind of poverty stricken areas where you're going to have more of that. And then those kids that are maybe at higher need will have less resources.
Yeah. You need more resources there. Yeah.
So it really, I think, boils all the way back to the breakdown of the family unit of like, what's wrong with public education? Well, public education is trying to do something that like families should be able to.
Right.
And the families that do that are like already teaching morality, social emotional learning. There are things that like they're saying like, hey, teachers, we need to start addressing this. I'm like, well, I mean, have you heard like character counts? Like that's an older thing where you're like teaching character in school.
Yeah.
And I always had such an issue with that because I'm like, hold on a second,
that's the job of the parents.
Don't parents teach kids that? Like, why should we be the first people talking about trustworthiness and respect and responsibility?
Yeah.
We're not. Why is that a thing that you teach in school? That's not a thing you can teach. I mean, I think you can demonstrate it.
Yeah.
And you can be put in situations that will encourage it.
Yeah, be a supplemental to the parents. Yeah.
Right. But exactly, like it's like a parent job first. Oh, but then they're like, well, we do it because we see parents that aren't doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like we have to try to do something to like close that gap.
Right.
And so there's this huge gap between the kids and their home life and where like what they're starting with, Like my fear is that you'll see a bigger gap between the haves and have-nots, right? Because there's already a gap there. And now I think the other side might be like, well, why does that punish the haves? Like if you have parents, like it's not to the fault of the child that's like has a successful home life or a successful family, like that set them up for success. They should be able to go where they want. But it is again, it's more that, well, the system is not broken. We are broken people. The family is broken. And if the family was whole, like, a kid would be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And I mean, and if we're just being honest, the family is just under attack as it is right now, but that's a whole nother issue. For me, when I first noticed something was wrong, it was really, I mean, I'm not going to try and bring politics into it, but like it was that governor's race where the governor, what was it, West Virginia or Georgia or somewhere down there, I can't remember, somewhere down there, like the incumbent governor said something about like the teachers know best and something to the effect of like, let us teach, you stay out of it, kind of thing.
Right. Like
and,
it was
and
like
the underdog challenger ended up beating him because he says, no, they are your kids.
parents have the
You
right.
should know what's going on.
Right.
Yeah, because parents started to see things that they disagreed with when all their kids went online during the shutdowns and things. And I was like, well, I agree with that. That if there's inappropriate teaching going on, the parents should know. And yeah, that governor ended up losing that race because of that statement right there.
Yeah, that was, I think, really pivotal.
And I think that was
that
big.
kind of attack on parents' rights and education.
Yeah. And I didn't hear anything about school choice until after that.
Right. What I think is scary about that, think about this though. If you have like, I think is our governor like this talking about having a parents' education bill of rights or something like. Where did I hear about this? I don't know if it's Kim Reynolds like thinking of talking of that.
Yeah, I think some of them have
that where it's like, hey, here's the parents' rights when it comes to your children's education. I'm like, okay, I understand where this is coming from. That you want to make sure that like parents know like, hey, this is law now, that this is your right. But what happens if like there's no way they can make this all encompassing? So they can't make, let's say they have a bill of rights for parents' education. Well, like what if it doesn't include something that maybe it should? Then all of a sudden a parent's going to be like, or can a school district be like, hey, that's actually not in the parents' bill of rights. Yeah. This is our right as a school to do. Yeah. It's not your right as a parent because that's the law. Where you could be like, no, I don't think we should be making anything
like that
about a parent. Like these are laws guaranteed by, no, that's ridiculous. The parents are the legal representative of their children. And if you have like prudent, like healthy parents, you're gonna be like, you have all the rights. There's not a set list of rights. You're like, oh, the state gives us these rights. No, they're not the state's to dole out. They belong to me as the parent
given by God,
caretaker of this child. And like what's crazy is you talk about like good parents. I always think about this. People like to be like, oh, I'm gonna ruin my child. I'm like, if you are involved in your child's life, you're not gonna ruin your child. Okay, we're squabbling over the top 5% of parent, like, oh, I feel so judged, I'm a 95th percentile parent, and like look at those 99th percentile parents. But one of the things like as fostering that you like see is like there are some kids that are in such dire, terrible need, and parents who are, I mean, you can blame the parents if you want, but it's like it's because of brokenness, right? It's either parents that experience trauma, they don't know how to deal with it, and they're passing it on to their kids, or maybe they don't have the education to know what's right and what's to do, or they don't have a support network, and they're just on their own. But when kids enter foster system, like I've heard personally, like, oh yeah, hey, there was signs of abuse or neglect or whatever, but it wasn't bad enough for removal. That happens because DHS they're limited in their resources, and so they're like, there's a time that like, drug use is in the home, but they're showing prudent parenting by only using drugs after the kids have gone to bed. So that shows prudent parenting, and then we won't remove the kids for that. Which is like, that's like, okay, clearly they have a drug problem, and like at what point, like that's an issue. But so like, and then those kids, little Timmy, whose parents are using drugs after they go to bed, is then come to school and expected to like learn, and I mean that's like. When you talk about like kind of the evil in the world, like people don't think about like what a kid is carrying with them when they come to school like that. And so in those cases, man, maybe it's like the public school is like the best place for a kid like that. Okay. And the same kid is in the same class with the kid who has like two parents at home, and like, like that both like invest in raising them. Like that's not a level playing field. Right.
Yeah. What worries me is just, who's to say what's right and what's wrong then? Like, it's tough to imagine people, like you said, the people who are writing these textbooks, they're throwing this stuff in here subtly. Well, who's making that decision? They think it's fine. They probably think it's good. You and I know it's not necessary, to say it in the nicest way. It's just not necessary. No matter what you believe, you don't got to do that. But they think it's the right thing to do. I worry about people's in position of power, whether it's in school boards or National Department of Education or things like that. I worry about people in those positions that have decision-making abilities that I would disagree with. And I think that's kind of where the whole school choice thing kind of woke up a sleeping monster.
Yeah.
Parents are just nervous and scared.
And honestly, I mean, like, think about that. Like, your biggest investment, your biggest treasure, your children, and you're giving them to someone else for, 8 hours a day for 13 years of their lives.
Yeah. They always say, the parents are the biggest influence on a kid. And I agree with that to an extent, but when they're at school away, your time doesn't stack up.
Right. So like parents might be the biggest influence, but then the teachers are the second biggest influence. Right. So that's still a big influence.
Yeah. It's huge. And then their peers and then everything. It's
one of the things that, like, sometimes it's a crazy thing to think about when I teach. I have kids 5th grade through 12th grade. Right. So 7 years. Now, thankfully, I'm a paragon of virtue and like somebody worth imitating and instilling like good character and morals into their children. But I have said at times, like, I was like, parents, you know what's crazy? I have the second most contact with your kids than any other adult outside of your family.
Yeah.
Outside of your family, I will know your kids more than any other adult.
Yeah.
Because I see them for 7 years in a row. And I watch them go from 10-year-olds to 18-year-olds.
Yep.
And we spend, 5-6 hours a week together.
Yeah.
Every school year. It was crazy. It's when you think about the amount of time that you like, I mean, I could see the appeal of being a homeschool parent of like, it's not because you don't want other people teaching your kids. It's because you are jealous of that time.
Sure.
Like, I want to be the one to like spend this time with you.
Yeah. And that's weird because homeschool, at least when I was young, you were young. I mean, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, but it was like, like they were kind of different or weird.
Ones. Those are weird ones.
And now it's like, oh man, there's this. It's its own movement now, and there's homeschool co-ops now where I couldn't homeschool my kids. I say that I realistically I understand I can make sacrifices, I could do this and that, but now if somebody down the street they want to do it or whatever, a few of us could co-op with it, and it's this whole movement now. It's not just this outside. I mean, it's still a minority of people, I think, but it's growing rapidly. It's weird. But you noticed something else, and something that I've noticed, and I was glad to hear you bring it up, about the way they do schoolwork now. The first time I heard one of my kids say something about they did an assignment, they got this grade on it, but it's okay, Dad, I'm going to reassess. And I was like, you're going to reassess? What the heck does that mean? You turned in this assignment or you took this test, this is your score. No, I get to redo it. That's basically what reassess means. And I was like,
right.
Well, that's good. You get a chance to bring your grade up, but like I instantly went back to like, you go take your learner's permit test. When you're done, if you missed more than you were allowed to miss, you get to see all the wrong answers and all the right answers of the ones you missed. And I was like, so you're guaranteed to pass it next time via memorization.
Right, if you remember the answer.
You didn't learn why that answer was the right answer. You just learned that's the right answer. I need to remember that answer with that question. So, and you kind of had an opinion on that, like you see.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, some of it, here's a hard thing is like, if you're thinking about when you're teaching, and like every teacher is a little different, every district is a little bit different. But sometimes like they teach a standard, right? So it's like a standard based of like, you have to prove that you understand how to, I mean, like, let's take math. Maybe you can like, understand the quadratic equation, right? And so if you take that test and you're like, oh, I did not pass this, so I have to retake it. Odds are you're not taking the exact same task.
Yep.
It's like the numbers will change.
Yep.
Everything. But the teacher wants to make sure it's like the process that's really important. Is like you have to show that you know this process.
Okay.
And so then when they reassess, I mean, that's usually where it will go. Is like you're just getting another chance to meet the standard. Where I think is good about that is that it's saying learning this is important, and it's so important that if you don't learn it, we're going to go back and reteach it to you and try to find another way to get you to get to this point.
Okay.
So then the reassess, it does change the grade. But I think this, like, it's always like, we have so many kids that are like kind of high achieving, like grade chasers, what does it take to get the A? What does it take to get the A? Instead, most teachers would love to be like, look, can you just not worry about the grade? And can you just worry about learning the material, learning the process? Yeah. So like, there's this like slow shift to try to get away from the grade chasing, the like, like I did good on this project, I did good on this test, and get more to like, I learned all the material and I now know how to do algebra or write an essay or whatever. And so there's where like maybe that chance to reassess is good.
Okay.
But like on the other hand, like, there's times where like we don't ever let a kid like fall down and fail,
Yeah.
And this may not just be in school, but in everything, like it's like the kind of participation trophy syndrome.
Yeah, sure.
Like everybody doesn't have to be the winner. Everybody's does,
Yeah.
And I think with my own children, I've actually encouraged my daughter. She's kind of a high achiever. She just wants the highest grade, right?
Sure.
Like, why isn't it 100%? I want it over 100%. I'm like, hey girl, it's okay to get a B once in a while.
Yeah.
Like it might be good for you. Just like fail a test. Just so you just see like, oh, I got to do this homework. I got to do this. Like, you don't have to. You learn a lot from failure. And it's like, in fact, I would say you learn the most from failure, because that's when you start to look at like, well, what am I doing and what should I be doing different, instead of kind of having somebody like, I mean, sometimes you need somebody to hold your hand and walk you along, but a lot of times you got to learn how to pick yourself up and do something different.
Yeah.
Because like, honestly, a lot of kids, I think that at our schools that are reassessing are like, oh, I didn't really try hard the first time because I knew I'll have another chance. I can just go see how maybe I'll pass if I don't even, it's like the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
They're not going to put in more work to master the material.
But if you take that safety net out, do you think it brings back the old school way of teaching? Like, I know if I flunk this or I get a C,
I'm going to have to redo this.
It's a C.
This whole class, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's hard to. Would it happen?
Know.
It's almost like a gentler teaching style or something now, where it's like, oh no, but is there no accountability now?
Right. Yeah.
And I don't, I'm sure there's a lot of research that talks about like holding kids back from, like repeating grades, and I know that was a thing when we were, when I was in school. It was a while ago, but. I mean, maybe it does more damage than good, but the trouble is then like if you have a deficiency and then you just advance them on and then it's still deficient, it's never going to get made up.
Yeah.
It's really a tough spot though to put, when you think about public school, is trying to like get the same kid that's going to go out of high school and just get right to a job, and another kid that's going to go right from high school right to a 4-year and then do like, grad school, med school, whatever after that, and still you have to like prepare them both for the same track. It's ridiculous to think that like a system like that can even is qualified to get. How can you be everything to everyone? You know?
Yeah, that's tough. That's why I'm not in the school system, I suppose.
Well, I think the hard thing is like that it's so many things that like maybe a parent could help do that, like maybe it's the parents could help have that conversation of like, look, you know what? I mean, I don't want to say like not everybody's going to college, but to like actually make it okay to be like, if you're done with school, you can find a great job.
Oh yeah.
Out of high school that will teach you what you need or give you the training that you need. Yeah. And you can have a great job.
Yeah, and don't feel like you're going to be a failure if you don't want to go to a 4-year school.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, we've had lots of those talks. That's okay. You chances are you won't make as much money, and that's okay. I mean, do you want a life like this, or
right?
If you go to Deers, you'll make more money than this, and Deers requires 0 college. And it's okay to take time to figure it out, and because I remember that was the big thing I heard. If you don't go to college, it's like you're doomed for failure and poverty almost. They never used the word poverty, but they made it sound like you're going to struggle. And so I wasted 3 years at Hawkeye.
Right. Okay, but now like they'd be like, oh my gosh, we need electricians, we need plumbers, we need any of these trades.
Yeah, there's
anybody that knows how to fix anything or make, like all these like skill specific trades. There's so many. I'm so happy to see it actually. So many graduates that are going out and getting like, I got an apprenticeship and I'm gonna start working right away. Like you're gonna make a ton of money.
And those jobs will pay for your training now too. I see a lot of the electrical programs.
And it's a job you can do like the rest of your whole career.
Always in demand.
Because like, I mean, it's tough to be like manual labor. It's tough to like really work hard. Yeah. For you can't
do concrete. You can't do a lot of factory jobs.
It's hard to be an old man and shingling on a roof.
Yeah, man. Yeah, good stuff. Lots of good stuff there. All right. So you kind of hinted towards this. We're going to kind of close with fatherhood and the importance of it. You had some opinions about this, and it's really intertwined into a lot of what we've been talking about in the What Is Up segment. So kind of give me your take on just what you think the value of it is.
It's hard to deny how important fatherhood is. It's also hard to deny that like fathers haven't been under attack through just, whatever you hear about like toxic masculinity, but also like, I mean, think about the last 20, 30 years, even in our media and like TV videos, like whatever you see from culture. You remember TGIF? Like,
oh yeah.
Okay.
Friday
so
nights,
like you got like the, Winslow's, and he's like this, like the
Family
dad,
Matters, Step by Step.
Yeah, exactly. The dad was like the virtuous source of wisdom. And it would be like, you can go to dad and talk about your problem.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, kind of like and now if you look at it, like, who is the dad? The dad is the Homer Simpson. The dad is the, like, Peter Griffin, Family Guy, like
Mom's running things.
Oaf, like the comic relief, the one that messes everything up.
Yeah.
The one that, like, and I just, once I like kind of opened my eyes to that like, oh my gosh, they're making dads play the fool.
Yeah.
Where it's like the weaker, the dumber, essentially just like the larger child that needs parenting just as much from mom. Like you see it in commercials where it's like, oh, it's always dad that makes the mistake. And the mom that's like, see, I told you. And like, always.
Yeah,
but like, there's so many social problems. There's so many that are just cured by having a present father.
Yeah.
Right. Like I brought some stats because I know I would never remember them all. But like, I started doing bedtime routines like a few years ago because I read that like, hey, when a dad does the bedtime routine, reading comprehension increases.
Okay.
Just because a dad does like tucks you into bed and like
nice.
And I mean, not to mention like just reading to your kids, like just that simple connection time.
Yeah.
But it's like lower infant mortality. Like there is less emotional and behavior problems, less likely to undergo neglect and abuse, lower risk of obesity. Like, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Lower risk of obesity. I mean, there's lower risk of going to jail, lifetime abuse of drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. Those are the big ones. And those are huge numbers. If the dad's not there, the numbers are way in favor of that kid struggling in school, going into incarceration, being on drugs, gang violence, all those things. Yeah, they skyrocket.
But I mean, I think on top of that though is like also like the guys like being the spiritual leader of the home. There's so many times that you just see men take a back seat to parenting, being the spiritual leader, like being the first line of defense. For me, like this all changed when I was reading through Ezekiel, like this Ezekiel 22.
Yeah.
And there's a spot where it's like talking about like God searching for a man to stand in the breach, like that he searched for a man to build up the wall and stand in the gap that he would not destroy the land. And he found none. And that's, to me, I look around, I'm like, okay, now I know that's a word to Israel at the time of the prophecy, but man, I take that to heart to be like, if God is looking for a man to stand in the gap that will be righteous, that will stand to save I want to be that man.
Yeah.
And I think that it is up to Christian men and fathers to rewrite the narrative of what it means to be a man, of masculinity. And masculinity can be toxic.
Sure.
If it's the hookup culture, if it's the look at me, if it's the like, I want to drive a Bugatti, look at all my women, look at all my, like that is toxic masculinity, right? It is doing, I try to just like talking to my boys, like of what does it mean to be a man? Usually, I mean, that's a hard thing, right? To like quantify. You saw the like, or heard about the documentary, What is a Woman?
Oh yeah.
But I mean, like, I know I can go to other people that I would say like, hey, no, that's a man. And we can talk about like, what's the difference between a boy and a man? Mm-hmm. And like, are we living lives like that we say like, that is what a man looks like? I think it has a lot more to do with the man is willing to do the thing that he doesn't want to or is uncomfortable to do, but he does anyway because he knows it is the right thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I
well
feel like
said. Well
that is
said.
that is when I determine that, like, when my sons, I'll be like, you're a man. When I see them start to do that, when I see them start to, it could be something as simple as I do a chore because I know it's the right thing to do. Right? Like, imagine how many problems would just be solved in our world if every man that considered himself a man would say something like, I did that because it needed done.
Yeah.
It's not my job to do it. No, it's not my job, but it needed done.
Or I didn't want to do it, but
yeah.
I did it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But like that kind of, and I mean, think about like what is the strength that we think about, is it how much weight you can lift?
Mm-hmm.
Is that like where your strength as a man comes from? Like, are you more of a man if you can lift more weights, if you can run faster, if you're fitter, if you're,
because that'll all fade.
Right.
Give it enough
like,
time, that's going to fade.
It has more to do, I think, with the resolve inside, the strength that you are. And, God calls us warriors. He's like, you should be like, you fight the good fight. Why is it called a fight? Because we're supposed to fight. And if you are a man and you are fighting that battle, you're going to have battle scars. You're going to have wounds. You might be like limping across the finish line.
Yeah.
But that kind of sacrificial manliness is it's how God loves us.
Yeah.
And it's how God called us to love our wives, our children, our spouses. And too many times I think men look at what is called to others. You know what I mean? Like, hey, wives are supposed to submit to your husband.
Yeah.
Hey, children should, you should honor your mother and father.
Yeah.
And you gloss over everything where it's like, fathers.
Oh, there's stuff for the dad.
You
yeah.
You love your wife as Christ loved the church.
Yeah. You sacrifice for her.
And that kind of sacrificial living and love, I think it's the way that Jesus did. I think that's what transforms the world. Sure. It's the way that, like, I mean, people have asked, like, why would you open your home to like troubled youth, kids that need, isn't that hard? I'm like, well, yeah, but like it needed done. Yeah. And God calls us to do the hard things. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's what we do. We follow Jesus. When Jesus said, pick up your cross and follow me. Do you think the disciples knew what the cross was? I mean, they knew. They'd seen people crucified. Yeah. Don't you think there's a little bit like, wait, so hold on.
That's why they ran and hid. They didn't want to do it.
If I got to follow you. Yeah. Jesus didn't call us to have a good, easy, comfortable life. He called us to like stand in the gap.
Yeah.
He searched for a man that would stand in the gap. Yeah. So like, that's like, okay, fathers, like you don't get a choice. You can't be like, I don't even know what's the, having a bunch of kids with different wives and like, that's just a boy playing the part. Yeah.
Wow. Lots of truth in there, man. Lots of truth. Yeah. Phil Robertson, that was the big thing when he was younger. They actually used that phrase, who's a man? And so it always come down to some sort of contest of being tough or not bringing a heater with you when you went duck hunting or, whatever, or the amount they could drink or whatever it was. And then he didn't realize until later how stupid that was. You know what I mean? Who's a man? Alice Cooper, they got this little documentary out right now called Fame. And Alice Cooper's a Christian. And I heard him say something about that. He said, you want to talk about, being a man or being a rebel. He said, having a concert, getting drunk, getting high, trashing your hotel room. He goes, that's not being a rebel. That's easy. That's just doing whatever's inside of me, what I want to do. He said, you want to be a rebel? Be a Christian. You surrender to God. That's going to test you. You deny yourself. You like you said, pick up your cross. You follow God. You surrender. He goes, that's being a rebel. You're rebelling against your sinful nature, and that's tough to do. That's tough to do, but that is what a man is. Right. You do the right thing because it needs to be done.
And you do it like time after time.
Yeah.
Day after day.
Yeah. Regardless of what comes at you. I love that. Yeah, I always think of John 16:33. Jesus told the disciples, in this world you're going to have tribulations, but take heart. I've overcome the world. Right. And he was telling them that because it's like they didn't get what was coming at them. But as Christian men sitting right here, that's the same call to us. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah, we might not be we might not be martyred for our faith, but the call is still the same. You know what I mean?
And what I think is crazy is this is the key to success in pretty much everything that you want to do. You want to be good at your sport, you just do the grind. You do the right thing every single day.
Yeah.
And you don't let up, and you keep working harder. You want to be a great Christian, read your Bible.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
Say no to the thing that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Say yes to the thing you should.
Yeah.
Like it's like that grind, right? That like day by day, it doesn't seem like anything changes. And then over time, all of a sudden you look back and you're like, how did everything get so different?
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Man, I can see why you like Courageous. When you start talking fatherhood, if you guys haven't seen it, check it out. Courageous. That, as a man, as a father, as a husband, as a young person who might be thinking somewhere down the line I might get married and have a family, you watch Courageous. Tell me if that don't get your heart lit up about the responsibilities of being a man. That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, Brandon Burlsworth, he was the best example, I think, of as far as, because I do a lot of sports analogies like that. And this was the kid that they made a movie about him called Greater. He wanted to be at Arkansas lineman so bad, and they didn't want him, so he had to walk on. And so he walked on. And by the time he was a senior, the Heisman Trophy. Well, they got a trophy every year they give out to the best walk-on in the country, and they name that the Brandon Burlsworth Award because he did everything right. He stayed away from the party scene. He worked his butt off. He made all the right choices combined with hard work and character and work. I mean, just tremendous example. And then he died the year he was drafted in a car accident. It's terrible, but life's hard, man. Life is hard. Well, man, I want to thank you for coming on. This has been great. We got a lot of good stuff here. I'm sure it encouraged a lot of people. But I just got to ask the audience, if you catch yourself, are you like us? Have you looked around a little bit and thought, man, what is up with that? What is up with, fatherhood? What is up with just anything? For me recently, one of the big things is I cite a new one every single episode. It's seeing guys that grew up, as guys compete against females in sports. And I'm just kind of wondering, how did we get to a point where we're doing this? Not to bash on anybody, but man, it's the definition of words. Is that tolerant or what is, how are we letting guys change into women and then compete against women in women's sports? We can't even define what a woman is anymore. It seems like. I know I can. It's in the Bible. It's an adult human female. It's that simple. If you're confused, you're confused, and there's help to be had out there. And believe me, I am in it. I am studying all the time about this kind of stuff. And there are people who are gender confused, and they find their way out of it with help. So if you need help, reach out. There's help to be had. But are you looking around wondering what is up with that? Why are things the way they are? And I'll say it again, the answers can't be found down here. Dan doesn't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. You need to go where we're going for our answers. You need to look to God, look in His Word, and He will truly show you what is up. I've been on both sides of a relationship with God, and I still think that the Bible gives you the best answers to why the world is the way it is and why we are the way we are, why we do the things we do. We'll be the first to tell you, Paul had it right when he says, why do I do the things I don't want to do? And the things I want to do, I don't do. It's a struggle with your sin nature. It's just the way it is. It's quite simple. We've all sinned, and there's hell to pay for that sin unless you get on the right side of God. And Jesus made that way possible. He said you must be born again. No matter what you've done in your past or what you're in right now or what you're struggling with, there is a way out, and it's found through Jesus. Like I said earlier, you can't earn it. You don't deserve it. It's been done for you. When Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, no one gets to the Father but through me, that means, contrary to what Wartburg used to say at one of their campus events, all roads don't lead to heaven. That sounds like a nice thing to say and a nice event to have, but Jesus said, no, that's not truth. That is not it. If you need more help or you want to know more, you can come to my church, First Baptist Dunkerton. You can go to Dan's church up there in Denver any Sunday. Doesn't matter. Or visit our live streams. Both got good pastors, good solid biblical teaching. Or leave me a comment in the comment section wherever you're listening. Or email me at whatisuppodcast@gmail.com, and I'll personally share the gospel with you so you can know for sure that God is real. He knows what you're going through. He loves you, and He wants a relationship with you. Okay? If you haven't figured out by now, there's nothing in this earth that we should put our hope in. everything will let us down. There is no person, there is no preacher, there is no politician or philosophy or even a podcaster that's not going to let you down. Everything is going to fail you at some point. You got to look up. So if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, be sure to follow this and leave a 5-star review. Or if you're on YouTube, subscribe to it, like it, leave a comment. Then make sure and share it with everyone you know. If you found this encouraging, share it as much as you can on your social media. Check out our Facebook page. My wife just started a new Facebook page. Check us out on Instagram. There's all kinds of stuff. You know, we do giveaways on there. If you want one of these hot t-shirts that you're going to see Dan take home today, check it out. Let me know. I welcome feedback, questions, comments, even criticism. It's okay to communicate. So send me that email or send me a comment. And I really appreciate you listening. I hope it encouraged you. And Lord willing, I'll talk to you on the next one.